At the time of recording, it's been about 6 weeks since the January 2025 ceasefire in Palestine. The conflict isn't over, obviously. There's no reason to think that this most recent round of violence is going to be the last. But because the Gaza war is now an event with a timeline, we can talk about it in narrative terms. There are beginnings and middles and ends.
Okay, so turns out it takes a long time to put together a video essay. Who knew? And in the time I've been working on this thing, Israel has broken the ceasefire, first in small continuous ways, and then in mid-March in one big decisive way, the kind of decisive that results in hundreds of dead children. So my framing here is bad. The Gaza war continues. But the basic argument of the video remains unchanged.
I want to narrativize what happened between 2023 and 2025 in Palestine from the perspective of the online left. That's the angle here. I'm interested in the way that the online left has been shaped by Gaza. When I say shaped, I mean that pretty literally. I think of online communities in roughly topological terms. They're intersections of a bunch of different media genres, platforms, and the online left is one of these networked social bodies, one with a really interesting contour. You can see the online left reshaping itself in response to the other social bodies it's critiquing. So this video isn't principally about Gaza, and that's partly because I don't have much to add historically or analytically to what you already know. But it's also because I want to let the posters, React streamers, debate bros, podcasters, and video essayists I'm going to spotlight here talk about the genocide themselves. They've been responding to it this whole time. I've got some criticisms about how some of them have responded, but I'm not going to focus on criticism here. This is unapologetic boosterism. I'm interested in the online left's response to Gaza because I genuinely think they've been helping, and I want to show off how.
Oh no, my gorgeous 39-year-old baby son got kidnapped just for attending Coachella outside Auschwitz.
Stop it.
Can't. Don't know how.
Sorry to report that the only way to get him back is to drop thousands of tons of explosives on his approximate location and remove access to food and medicine.
Won't someone think of the plight of the concentration camp guards?
I'm gonna print this tweet out and go to the corner with it like a newsie.
R.I.P. to Major Sergeant Yoav. He was just an innocent civilian.
The first people responding to Gaza were on Twitter. That's where the most immediate journalism happens, right? Even now. Independent journalists, alternative media reporters, non-Western outlets, some of the better parapolitical investigators, they're all breaking stories on Twitter. They're more informational than fun, usually, if only just. But Twitter also has the sorts of pseudo-journalists that react to stories rather than breaking them. Podcasters, platform aggregators, critics, celebrities, academics, activists, blue checkmarks, specialists of all kinds. They're more fun than informative. And all of them are talking about the most legibly political thing, the news, all the time.
Twitter is old. It's full of old people. Written by old people, read by old people. It needs other old people to explain it. Like that thread from the beginning, the Eyup Lovely tweet about the gorgeous 39-year-old baby son. It's part of a whole genre. It has a genealogy that goes back to the Tea Party era. But the generational barrier on Twitter isn't hard to get past. You don't need the context. You can just let waves of effectively authorless tweets roll over you until you start to feel at home in the sea. Which is something you have to do anyway, because Twitter resists context. It's more ephemeral than most social media. It's like 4chan for elder millennials and Gen Xers. Probably some boomers too.
I don't think most people pay much attention to Twitter. I only started paying attention to it myself after Musk took over it in 2022. It was hard to get a better view on the train wreck, and that's been just as true for Gaza as it's been for Musk. Horrifying content makes its way from the various corners of the internet to Twitter's endless scroll daily. And because left Twitter is made up of an endless variety of loud, proud personalities, it's been responding in a million different ways that a billion people have seen and heard and felt for more than a year. I can't talk about all of these different styles of response, but let me highlight just one. Headline criticism. The mainstream media, including major legacy publications like the New York Times and the BBC, have spent the entirety of the Gaza genocide carrying water for Israel, and left Twitter has spent lots of its time exploring why these stories are bunk. They haven't always had to delve into the stories themselves, though, since the headlines reveal so much on their own. Just look at the grammatical structure of some of these. Even if you know nothing at all about the conflict, about the history, about who's wrong, the style of writing alone should tell you that something's off.
Let's look at just one of these in detail. So CNN reports, Israel confirms an IDF attack caused the massive blast at Gaza's largest refugee camp that has reportedly left many people dead and injured. Corey Robin interprets it. George Orwell reads CNN. People are left dead by blasts that are caused by attacks. A Gaza refugee camp is a place in Gaza for refugees from somewhere. The IDF are three initials of uncertain provenance. Israel is a fact-checking institution of international repute. This is comically tortured. Every bit of it is calculated to deflect or confuse. The one thing I can say about the CNN headline is that it definitely wasn't composed by ChatGPT. You can tell when something's been written by a human with an agenda.
Don't get me wrong. Patiently pointing out every use of the passive voice isn't revolutionary on its own. I don't want to exaggerate the impact of a handful of tweets. My point isn't that left Twitter's obsession with headlines is important, but that it illustrates one of the basic values held by the online left. They care about the truth. More than that, they care about communicating the truth. Confronted by dissembling liberal institutions,
the failing New York Times,
left Twitter can't help but respond by calling them out. So, Twitter does quickly what the rest of the online left does comparatively slowly. It responds to the lies and actions of its adversaries. The principal job of the online left is just response. Every leftist content creator is responding in some way to the people or institutions or phenomena that are for them worthy of effortful condemnation. Like Israel.
With the other type of Zionists, with the so-called left in Israel, we cannot even agree about the basic facts. But for them, in order to feel that they are both Zionist and moral at the same time, they have to keep lying to themselves all the time, every moment of every day. So they have perfected this whole discourse of lies in order to lie to themselves and also in order to lie to the international community, in order to just...
The reason why you guys keep saying this is exactly like annexation of Ukraine, or this is exactly like fucking British rhetoric in the colonies, this is exactly the same kind of things that we heard about apartheid South Africa, is because it's the fucking same. It's a colonization project, and we are seeing it happen before our eyes. That's why. It's literally the fucking same. You can cry about it all fucking day long and be like, well, we have a very complicated history of marginalization, which is true, but that doesn't fucking...
So, you have Twitter reacting to the news as it happens in text form, and then you have streamers reacting to Twitter. Hasan Piker is the most important React streamer on the left. There's no real contest here. There are some lovely people among his compatriots, but they're generally overshadowed by everyone's favorite himbo.
Streamers occupy a really interesting space in the world of political commentary. Those of them successful enough to make a career out of streaming spend entire working days on Twitch or YouTube Live metabolizing the news for their viewers. Hasan broadcasts almost every day. I say viewers, though often they're listeners. Fans use streams as background noise at least as frequently as foreground focus, and this means that streamers are in some ways more like drive time DJs or AM radio jockeys than news anchors. Streamers like Hasan marry old-school AM radio propaganda to live chat and a world of information. They're doing something that's recognizable, but also new.
Hasan has been talking about Israel and Palestine for years. He never minces words. Israel is a fascist ethno-state. It maintains apartheid in the occupied territories and the world's largest concentration camp in Gaza.
Look away. You can say both sides are wrong all day, every day, boys. You are doing all lives matter. That is all you're doing in that situation. You are all lives mattering the fucking Israel-Palestine conflict. It is not equal. It is asymmetrical warfare that an occupying fascist ethno-state is engaging against an indigenous population.
Literal Hitler Youth? Oh, 100%. 100p.
Think about it this way. Pre-October 7 discourse among the progressive pro-Palestinian camp was that it's a faux pas to make comparisons to Nazis in Israel. It's no longer a faux pas. Pure fascism.
Everyone wants to criticize the IDF's response, but nobody wants to tell me what should Israel be doing to retaliate October 7th, eradicate Hamas from preventing another October 7th, and bring the hostages
I have
home.
an idea.
Do you have a solution?
I have an idea. How about not killing the hostages?
I have an answer.
Thank you for proving my point.
It's called the
Yes,
dissolution of the apartheid regime.
Everything Hasan has observed Israel doing in Palestine during his career as a streamer, from IDF snipers blowing out the knees of children during the Great March of Return of 2018, to the forcible evictions in Sheikh Jarrah and the storming of the Al-Aqsa Mosque in 2021, to the wholesale campaign of elimination during what the mainstream media call the Israel-Hamas war. All of this Hasan has called out with moral clarity. He did this on October 7th, 2023, and the 8th and the 9th, and he's done so every broadcast day since. Taking his cues from Twitter and a wide range of non-Western and alternative media sources, Hasan contextualizes the news as it's happening, repackaging it for an audience no less outraged than he is. In a short uploaded on October 12th, Hasan directs this outrage at a chatter disinterested in context. Hamas's murder of Nova Festival goers just happened on its own, he jokes, cause, the bad guys wanted to do bad things. The editor overlays a map showing the territory of Palestine shrinking radically between 1947 and 2012. Do you think the Israeli state was just peacefully coexisting? Hasan asks. The chatter responds, yeah, and they deserve it? And then Hasan starts to yell.
They didn't deserve it, you idiot. My goal is solutions. Your goal is the continuation of violence.
The chatter is decontextualizing the events of the 7th, and Hasan is having none of it. There is context.
You think these people are just oh, we were violent because we want to be violent? Or do you think it's because you have entrapped them, you have bullied them, you have subjugated them? 2 million people live inside of Gaza. They're not even people in the eyes of Israelis. The average age is 18 years old, 57% unemployment. They can't even get concrete inside of Gaza so they can build water salination plants because 97% of their water is toxic. They're dying of mass starvation. You cannot push people into a corner their whole lives and not expect them to fight back at a certain point.
React streamers like Hasan do a lot of good. They're definitely educational, though so is every other halfway decent content creator. I think the most unique feature of React streamers has to do with their contemporaneity. React streamers react live. They learn and feel things at the same time as their audience. They're ideally positioned to channel their community's righteous anger. They're able to react quickly and meaningfully because of long, slow days spent digesting information, forming opinions, and fostering parasocial relationships in real time. They're the result of a whole complicated socio-technical, libidinal, temporal apparatus that produces and circulates affect. I think they're great.
Hey, you are from TikTok.
No, I'm from Palestine.
Yeah, I'm from Palestine. No, bro.
Well,
There's no Palestine. There's Israel.
But I'm from Palestine.
You're not from Palestine, man.
But I am.
Okay.
Okay.
So your home gonna blow up?
What?
Gonna bomb?
What?
What?
My home is gonna blow up?
Yeah. I wish.
Why?
Because what did you do in the 7th October?
But what about the Nakba in 1948 and the 750,000 people displaced?
Bro, everything...
React streamers got to Israel-Palestine second. The debate bros came third. They all had something to say. Their mode of argumentation differs again from React streamers and Twitter posters. Debate bros make their claims not only to their own audiences, but in direct opposition to one or more interlocutors.
Destroy, damage, the type of weaponry they're using cannot be used in a discriminate way in such a densely populated area. I'll amend to say a significant amount of that weaponry cannot be used.
But that's just on its face not true. Is Hamas's strategy working for Palestinians? And that's, again, this is, if you want to talk about why I take the stances I do, this is a major component of that.
Okay.
I don't think what Hamas
question?
is doing is working for Palestinians.
Did the Warsaw Ghetto uprising work for Jews in Poland? Because all that it did was cause reprisals.
Not particularly.
They tend to get heated.
Wait. Shouldn't it be up to individual Palestinians whether they choose to leave or go and choose a safer option? No, so they have to be forced to stay in Gaza to fight against Israel. So it's just a national suicide pact.
No. What?
When you think of debates, if you think of debates, chances are you're thinking of the more professional programs, like Piers Morgan's Uncensored or Jubilee's Surrounded. Or maybe you're thinking of specific people, like Sam Cedar.
Oh no, Sam Cedar! What a fucking nightmare!
He's been on both Uncensored and Surrounded. This kind of more professional content is sort of part of the online left, though my definition tends to focus on the amateurs. When I'm thinking of online debate, I'm thinking about sweaty dudes behind webcams calling each other fascists. These sweaty dudes don't get nearly as many views as their better-funded, more professional colleagues, but I think there's a lot to be learned from paying attention to exactly how they go about weighing in on the issues of the day.
From late 2023 to early 2025, there was no debate bro more determined to weigh in on Gaza than Destiny. In debates with Omar Badr, Norman Finkelstein, Mark Lamont Hill, Elon Levy, Muin Rabbani, Nathan Robinson, Ben Shapiro, Cenk Uygur, and more, Stephen Kenneth Bonnell II consistently held to the Zionist position. His most candid description of it can be found in a casual conversation he had with a few other streamers prior to October the 7th.
Honestly, I'm pro-genocide. It sounds really shitty, but I think that Israel should just draw up its fucking borders about where it is now, and basically Palestinians can go live in another place. That's really shitty, but that's about where I'm at.
One of his interlocutors is incredulous.
You just think that Palestine should just pack up and Native American the fuck out of there?
That does seem to be the idea.
The problem is that it seems like there is a hugely general hostility to Jewish people across really the entire world, but definitely the Middle East. So the problem is that as you weaken Israel's ability for Jewish people to live there, it seems like because there's a lot of different organizations across the Middle East that are highly invested in the destruction of Israel. So that's a really rough thing too. So it seems like if Israel is forced to make concessions to Palestinians, it threatens Jewish people's ability to have a homeland. And so I don't know. It's really shit. Truthfully, the answer is there's no good answer. It's hard. It's hard. It's a really, really complicated situation.
It's hard, Destiny says. It's a really complicated situation. You have to admire Destiny for putting the liberal fascist position so succinctly. Arabs are irredeemable anti-Semites who are constitutively incapable of living alongside Jews, so Israel and its allies have no choice but to eradicate them. It's complicated means it's right that they die. Destiny, the omniliberal, sometimes describes his politics as left. He's bi. He campaigns for the Democrats. He can convince a certain kind of gullible guy that he's
either left or far left, depending on your perspective.
But Destiny's not a leftist. He's a walking example of the online, but he's not on the left. You can't support a genocide and be on the left. Destiny shows bad judgment all the time. This makes him almost the platonic ideal of the debate bro. It's weird and discouraging how often debate bros judge poorly, because judging is their whole thing. They spend all of their time arguing why things are right or wrong. It's obnoxious for a lot of people, but I think it's good to have folks like them out there arguing with one another about what's right. At least if they're doing so sincerely. They're not always right, no one is, but that's fine. Regardless of whether they're right or wrong, they're giving their audiences a chance to judge for themselves. The online left is truthful, angry, and judgmental, and I think that's good too.
We join the American Muslim community in reaffirming our support for the Palestinian people's right to freedom and calling for an end to the Israeli occupation, which sparks the deadly violence that we see again and again, including today. On October 7th, before any Israeli response at all, CARE also called for an end to American aid to Israel and the Abraham Accords.
Fuck this gay shit. I'm gonna go watch Shrek.
Let's watch it right now.
Dude, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm Shrek, dude. I'm Shrek.
I'm
man.
Shrek,
I'm just
dude.
watching Shrek. I don't fucking.
Podcasters were slower to address Gaza than React streamers, but about as fast as the most drama-hungry debate perverts. Most podcasts closely connected to news cycles like Chapo Trap House expressed their outrage weekly. They were furious, but typically productive, talking about the horror, and then talking about other stuff. They had to. Who else would critique the commentariat? No, to be fair, Chapo was zeroed in on Gaza from their first post-October 7th podcast, and they remain zeroed in on it now. They've been a beacon this whole time, despite the fact that, in early October, Matt Christman had just had a stroke.
The question on everyone's mind is, how is Matt doing? We are very pleased to report that he is out of the ICU.
And his wife had just had a baby. Listening to the hosts talk about all of this at the same time that they were reporting on Gaza made me feel a little like we were going through things together. Especially when I could also hang out with podcasts that didn't always zero in on it, or who got to it laterally, or whatever. In other words, I think the most interesting thing to me about the podcasts of the online left is how closely I felt like I was connecting to the podcasters. Content creators of all sorts invite their audience members to form parasocial relationships with them. Different content creators, of course, do this in different ways.
You don't know me, I owe you nothing, give me money, fuck you.
Some less than others. But I think there's something special about the relationship that listeners form with podcasters. I find podcasters, or at least podcasts, seductive. I think this is in part because it's an acoustic medium, right? Podcasts are low definition. They invite you to fill in the gaps, so you lean in. Your eyes soften, your hands move on their own, and you listen. This isn't an exclusive feature of podcasts. Lots of people listen to all of their content, but I think the fact that podcasts are tailor-made for listening makes them the perfect medium for conveying complexity and significance and detail, particularly over time. Podcasts work longitudinally. They've got great artistic and didactic power because they've got their audience by the ears today and tomorrow and tomorrow. I spent time with Chapo, but I think I identified the most with Death is Just Around the Corner. It's not as well known as Chapo, but it's closely connected. The host, a writer named Michael Judge, he goes on Chapo, and then Matt and Will from Chapo go on Death Corner, and then everyone hangs out with Liz and Brace from TrueAnon. And isn't it nice to have all these smart, charming friends? I identified with Michael Judge not just because of the affordances of the medium, but because he helped me see things in an appropriately horrifying light. What Israel is doing to Gaza, Judge repeats on Death is Just Around the Corner, is as bad as anything anyone has ever done to anyone else.
Welcome to the Fourth Reich. We have been expecting you. If there were ever an event to prove that the Nazis were not defeated, we were not trying to defeat them, we were trying to repurpose them. If there were ever an event to prove that fascism was not conquered, we never wanted to conquer fascism. Fascism simply was absorbed into the capitalist American European bloc as another tool in the arsenal when all that liberal democracy shit was wearing a little bit thin in terms of our actual objectives. If anything proves that, this proves that.
He can't come to terms with it. But the show's episodes at least half sublimate his feelings. The title of episode 199 is a reluctant invocation of John Milton. The description of episode 200 is a visceral reference to Roberto Bolaño. The primary subjects of many episodes are artists like Bowie and Lynch and Pynchon. But they're invariably also about Gaza. Episode 209 begins with a full playback of Aaron Bushnell's last words.
I am an active duty member of the United States Air Force, and I will no longer be complicit in genocide. I'm about to engage in an extreme act of protest, but compared to what people have been experiencing in Palestine at the hands of their colonizers, it's not extreme at all. This is what our ruling class has decided will be normal.
We then hear Bushnell light himself on fire and shout, "Free Palestine," until his throat gives out. It's a brutal way to begin anything. It affects Judge.
There's really no other way to say this, and I know this may be embarrassing or on the nose or seem like a bid for self-importance. I understand all that. But the only way I can describe what is going on in my brain right now and for the last, what's it been, 3-4 days, is that since I saw Aaron Bushnell self-immolating outside the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C., I have been having a continuous kind of whatever the worst form of religious vision is. I have been, as Amiri Baraka once said, I've seen something in the way of things. I have witnessed a bunch of apparently unrelated or tangentially related sort of cells suddenly interlocking into a pattern that was clearly latent before, but I had never seen it quite this way before.
I like Death Corner as much as I do because Michael Judge is uniquely talented at describing patterns like these. And I think he's able to do that because he's great with detail. He really knows how to work with it. By reading Gaza into literature and music and chemistry and more, Judge rubs particulars together and gets sparks. Podcasts demonstrate what the online left can do with time and attention. Parasociality makes it possible for podcasters to get particular, and particularity is what makes it possible for people to make meaning.
The doctors operate in a state of exception where they can kill certain lives without it being homicide. When a police officer can kill a 12-year-old boy who's playing with a toy the moment they arrive on scene, and then leave with 0 criminal charges, that's biopolitics letting sovereign power do whatever it wants. Just like how a dictator's decisions instantly become law, the decisions of these medical professionals and judicial actors have a similar structure. This seems to be reflecting Hannah Arendt's idea that totalitarianism and democracy aren't that different and can collapse.
There's an inverse correlation between how outraged you are by speech you disagree with and how likely that speech is to actually hurt you. And I don't mean like individually powerful people here. I mean hegemonically powerful people, people in the dominant group, white people, men.
Where people confront their states and institutions' complicity with genocide. The horrors continue, but so does resistance. With Palestinian armed factions fighting back ferociously in Gaza, with Hezbollah continuing to pin
I keep asking myself, why are you still here? Sometimes I am lost in answering until I see my grandfather take a nap under his olive tree.
The video essayists were the last of the party. This was a delay dictated in part by temperament, in part by medium. Video essays take longer to put together than even the most literary podcasts, even when the essayist already knows what they're going to say. The first of these were the most straightforward. Every week or so, channels like The Humanist Report, GDF, and North Star Radio released videos summarizing events while providing historical and political context. Those that came later synthesized their various ideas in wildly idiosyncratic ways. Khadija Mbao excoriates performative victimhood by describing the way that people like Amy Schumer and Kanye West disingenuously speak.
You did nothing wrong. Everything was done to you. And I'm sorry, but I refuse to believe that when you're in such a high position of power and authority and you have such a large following and people that literally worship the ground that you walk on in everything you do and say, and you instill that in the audience too, when you have the ability to change actual public policy that affects everybody's everyday lives, what are you a victim of? Sound like Kanye West. No one man should have all this power. Oh my God, this is terrible.
Dr. Fatima connects indigenous Hawaiians' opposition to the construction of telescopes on Mauna Kea to Palestinians' resistance to Israel, describing both as violations of sovereignty.
The plan to build TMT on Mauna Kea, as well as the building of the telescopes that preceded it, is inherently colonial. Hawaii is a settler society where the self-determination of the native population that was nearly genocided out of existence is secondary to the utility their land brings to the United States, primarily as a military outpost, but also whatever else it can be useful for. At one point that was plantations, today it's generally tourism, but on Mauna Kea, It is astronomy.
Lily Alexander considers the role that art has to play in mobilization, insisting that it does more than simply raise awareness.
The most pressing issues we're facing today come down to irreconcilable differences between the interests of the people and the interests of the state. Trying to resolve those through awareness campaigns succeeds only in making us understand how little power we currently have. You're probably already thinking about Palestine here, right? Grassroots efforts to end the ongoing genocide are hugely popular worldwide, and they have the support of too many artists to count. But those of us in countries aligned with Israel have found our governments, universities, and large corporations incredibly hostile to our position. Israel is their trading partner and a powerful regional ally. Their refusal to leverage their power to end this brutality is a coldly calculated one. They don't think it would benefit them. And the way to change that is not by appealing to their conscience, but by making their position risky and unprofitable.
JREG uses the political compass to explain how someone can hate Jews but love Israel.
Last week, the U.S. Congress passed a bill that clearly and firmly states that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. This is a statement that codifies a long line of fallacious thinking that conflates anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism. This is totally absurd. These are two entirely different belief spectrums, and they should not be evaluated as a single group. It is, for example, entirely possible to criticize the Israeli government without being anti-Semitic. But more importantly, it's also possible to be an anti-Semitic Zionist. You see, as an anti-Semitic Zionist, I don't want to do this one. I am an anti-Semitic Zionist.
Noah Samson talks about genocide by talking about the streamers who debate whether or not it's genocide.
I don't know what better evidence you can have of genocidal intent than looking into the camera and saying, I want to do a genocide. We want to do a genocide. We want to kill everybody. We want to do it right now as soon as we can. And then immediately taking actions over and over and over again that are meant to achieve that goal. How much fucking clearer does it get, man? We're going to return now to a few more of Destiny's tweets because, that's the point of this video, to look at an influencer's tweets and call him dumb, not use drama farming as a Trojan horse to read the ICJ application that lays out a pretty compelling case that Israel is committing genocide. That's not the point of this video. We're here to farm.
Sean points out that nothing can justify this.
The problem for me with simply countering the excuses coming out of Israel about why the IDF just has to kill so many children is that there's no circumstance in which dropping bombs on children is okay. It cannot be right to do what they're doing under any circumstances, no matter what they say, no matter the excuse, and no matter what came before. It does not matter what Hamas have ever done. It does not matter what any Palestinian has ever done. It does not matter if everything the IDF says is the God's honest truth or if every word of it is a lie. I could spend my time debunking everything the IDF has ever said to justify their actions in the current conflict, and not a word of it would matter at all either way with regards to whether or not it's okay to kill 10,000 children. You don't get to do that ever.
This is obviously just a sample of what you can find in the more radical corners of YouTube. And it's not really representative of what any other viewer might discover on their own. This is partly because most people don't watch as many video essays as I do. But it's also because of how the algorithm works, right? Once it clocks you as white, or a zoomer, or into videos about marble racing, or whatever, it's going to force feed you more stuff in that exact same neighborhood. Because it's profitable. That's not great, since it tends to mean homogenization in the image of the dominant YouTuber, but it's not always bad. When the algorithm feeds you a good essayist, you can learn things, and this is because video essayists, like podcasts, are long-form, complicated, highly particular bits of content. And unlike podcasts, they're also visual, and they're on the most popular platform in the world. Video essays can reach people where they're at.
There's depth in this list, of course. Video essays are supposed to be rich texts, but I think diversity is the most interesting feature here. Each video takes the same basic issue but presents it in its own way, speaking to its own audience, communicating in its own vernacular. There are explainer videos, news digests, philosophical inquiries, cri de coeur, amateur documentaries, intersectional alliances, mocking takedowns, and drama bait. There are videos that take complicated routes into Israel-Palestine, videos that connect Israel-Palestine to their own particular angle, and just videos with great clickbait titles. Look at them in sequence and they tell a story of several different communities starting conversations about genocide. Video essayists, I've just said, show off the breadth of the online left. Podcasters, meanwhile, illustrate the ways that the online left works with particularity. Debate bros live to judge, React streamers channel affect, and left Twitter insists on the truth. I should point out that these things don't have much in common. We've got an epistemological category, a psychic drive, a faculty, a quality, and a feature. These aren't parallel. That's okay, though. I'm not trying to put too neat a bow on this. I'm not saying that judgment is a feature of debate, or debate bros, or YouTube Live. I'm saying that the online left is a thing that judges, as you can see from the bad judgment of debate perverts. I'm saying that it's not incidental or deleterious that the online left uses parasociality to convene communities, or distracts itself with drama, or overindulges in contempt. I'm saying that the various ways in which the online left is responding to Gaza can help us describe how this very loose association of parasocialists hangs together. When you think about the online left from the perspective of a discrete but ongoing event like the genocide in Gaza, you can understand it synchronically and diachronically and corporeally. It's a body responding in real time to a blow. One social body is attacking another, and everyone feels it, and social media is spreading the feeling. It hasn't stopped the violence, but it has exposed the true extent of the damage and the rot.
You can sometimes see this by looking at individual content creators. Like, it's obviously the case that Hasan has personally made a difference. He reaches people, a lot of different people.
His name is Hasan.
But it's not just Hasan.
I can't work without real journalism.
Literally everyone in the online left is helping to expose the dictatorship in democracy. Because networks have network effects. Everyone in the network is contributing. I think there's a temptation to dismiss content creators for being narcissistic self-promoters who virtue signal rather than making any real change in the world, or to dismiss audiences as entirely passive. But I think this is both bad analysis and nihilism. If you think that fascist propaganda works, and presumably you do because...
Look around you, just look around you.
Then you think that propaganda works. Why would you attack left propagandists? Division is bad strategy in general, but in this particular case, it's additionally bad because there's often real value, real novelty, in the parts of the online left that you might find distasteful. If you don't pay attention to them, you can't see the whole shape of the network. And I think, above all, it's the particular shape taken by the whole of the online left that's important. Every fascism is different. They're all the same in some basic ways, of course. There's way too much to get into here. But every fascism plays out in its own way. Italian fascism wasn't identical with German fascism, just as American fascism isn't identical with Israeli fascism, even if they're all linked. The important thing about the online left is that they're reacting not just by shouting fascism in general, but by describing in great detail exactly what forms of fascism we're dealing with. By offering audiences a wide breadth of approaches and a corresponding degree of specific detail, the online left is playing an important role in constructing an anti-imperialist counter-hegemony. Gaza crystallizes all of this. Refracted as it is through social media, it's an invitation to judge. It's complicated refuses the invitation. Who am I to say what's right and wrong? But it's not complicated, and it's horrifying, and probably your government is doing it. It's not an invitation. It's a challenge. You have to judge. I wish that Michael Brooks were still with us because no one could get this across quite like him. His response to the standard deflection about Israel-Palestine has stuck with me since I first heard it.
Are you not concerned about the binary between either condemning Israel entirely, being like also a stance that a lot of like very strong and notorious anti-Semitic people agree with, versus like, you know, seeing this as more of a complex issue where it is wrong what's going on, and there's also a way to do this that Israel still exists and is supported?
So it's not a complex issue. That's the big thing. It's super simple. There's one group that has enormous power. It's the most powerful country in the Middle East. It's backed by the United States. It acts on another population of people with total impunity and is never held accountable for anything. So there's no symmetry in the relationship, period. And just as like a thought experiment, IDW people, if we know that if somehow a population of Jewish refugees ended up in West Bank and Gaza, and an Arabic government in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv had an open air prison in Jewish Gaza, which they bombed with white phosphorus, they killed civilians indiscriminately, and they had no provisions for medicine. They had an embargo that blocked food, that electricity wasn't running, that there was an over 48% unemployment rate, life expectancy and malnutrition statistics were horrifying. One of the major policymakers in this hypothetical Arabic Palestinian state said, we need to put those Jews on a diet. In the West Bank, there was another Jewish area where there was a little bit more autonomy, but there was regular Arabic settlements where they pulled up the Jewish farmers' foods, they terrorized them with rocks, the security forces broke children's bones, and they couldn't drive their own roads. We'd all have no problem understanding what that was. So there's nothing complex about it. The second part of your question, it's a pure asymmetry relationship. And the question is rights or not.
It's simple. You just need a chance to think about it. That's certainly what Brooks offered. He gave people an opportunity to think about politics. The other parasocialists are currently doing the same. And I, for one, am grateful. I think it's a good thing that people are being forced to reckon with brutal but simple truths, because I trust people to judge for themselves. When I talk to them about Gaza, I believe they can hear it.